It's time for another Dice Tower review with the Chief, Bart Brunscheen.
Hey, it's the Chief from the Dice Tower. I'm joined again today by Judd Vance. What's your...
Ham Tag. Oh, wrong video.
Yeah, we're not doing Ham Tag on that. Although now you guys all know him from Ham Tag. And you're Air Juddin.
Yes.
On BGG. All right. Today we're talking about Ghost Panzer. Judd actually introduced this to me, and is it fair to say this is your favorite game right now, war game?
This is my favorite World War II tactical combat system. This is one I've been looking for since I first played Squad Leader in the early 80s.
And the designer's Jim Crone?
Yep. The first one in the series, Screaming Eagles, was his first design, and he did this and Space Empires almost at the same time.
Excellent. And the big difference for Ghost Panzer, if you don't get it already, it's going to be Eastern Front, Russians, and the 11th Panzer, is it Corps? Division?
Division, I think.
Division. I think it's Division, which takes you through Stalingrad, the Backhand Blow.
Kursk,
Curzon Pocket. So you're talking pretty much the major scenes, the major battles all throughout the Eastern Front that are going to be simulated here. Now we're going to go in and take a closer look, but real quick, I know it's a simplified squad level tactics system that it really rewards real tactics, but it simplifies the in-game to do that. How does that get done? Because I know you're kind of an expert on this.
It doesn't. You move in, you lay down suppression fire. You're not going to sit there and try to hit that guy from 5 hexes away and score the magic kill shot. That's just probably not going to happen. I mean, bad stuff happens. You run across open fields at somebody who's ready for you. But this is really about laying down suppression, moving in, taking them out up close and melee. The melee system is a simplified part. It's a little more abstracted, but it's not really each individual hand-to-hand or guy in a cellar or something like that. But this is really about getting the suppression down and then moving across that field, because you don't want to move across an open field without having them fully suppressed.
Yeah, which is exactly true life tactics. It's find them, fix them, and then kill them.
Yep.
So you want to find the enemy. You want fix them is basically pin them down in spot, and then you're having a second unit, you generally or more, then maneuver on that unit. And then it either retreats or it dies in place is the idea. So, and that's what we've got going here.
Yes.
All right.
And it's done in a very simple rules format. I don't remember exactly what this one was. Screaming Eagles, I think it was 7 pages. You were playing infantry combat.
A little bit more here because they're working in a lot more tanks. You've got planes, the Stukas coming in. You've got half tracks because it's Panzer Grenadier.
Yeah.
Everything from, units that are on the half track can shoot from the half track, but obviously if a gun's being towed, it cannot be fired until it's unlimbered.
Yeah, it's 2-section rule book. The first is infantry. It might be up to about 10 pages because he combines some rules that say this is Screaming Eagles only. It's a combined rule book. So this will be Ghost Panzer only, and some are combined. But the first half is just the infantry section. Then you want to introduce the guns and the vehicles. That's the second part. So it's real nice. You don't have to memorize all of it. And there's scenarios just for the beginning part.
And a little teaser. He's got another game from the system coming out soon.
Yeah, so he's got something of an expansion coming out called Texas Arrows. What happens, he simplified the morale system in here, really slick, took some die rolling away and made it a lot more intuitive and the math a little easier. So people said, hey, when am I going to get my Screaming Eagles counters with these new things? So he's introducing the Texas Arrows, which will give you the new counters and then new scenarios. And I don't remember which. It's an infantry division.
Weren't the Texans the ones that were surrounded up in the Hurtgen forest that the Japanese troops went and saved?
I don't know, actually.
442nd, maybe?
I use his stuff to learn a lot about these. Okay. I knew about the 101st Airborne, but I didn't know anything about Ghost Panzer.
Makes me wonder about the 442nd. I think that's the all-Japanese unit. But he also has something coming out on 1st Marines.
Yeah. Is it First Marine? Yeah, First Marine. Old Breed. It's coming out next year.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go and take a closer look. I'm going to have Judd do that because he is the master.
Yeah. This is just a quick view of the map, how it lies out. It comes up with a series of these. They're all geomorphic, and they all work with the Screaming Eagles game and future games. They all have the 4 roads on each side, so they're all going to connect together. Some of the big tank, open tank scenarios will say ignore the roads. It still makes them geomorphic. But you can also see there different terrain features, stone buildings, wood buildings, trees. I mean, that's the level this is. This is 40 yards per hex. I've also thrown 3 units down there, an armor unit, which represents 1 tank, and then 2 squads. And I'm going to zoom in for a little bit closer explanation of this. Okay, in this game, you don't use tables like your typical combat results tables. Instead, the information is directly on the counter. Right here in this German unit, you see 6/5. That's his firepower standing still, and what's called a proficient firepower for if he's moving, like assault fire, or if he's shooting at a moving object, such as op fire. The next one is his range, 6, and the next is the casualty values. I'll explain that in a second. And then here you got a white 10, a yellow 6, and a red 1. This is his morale values. If he wants to do something, he's going to have to roll against the morale with the 10-sided dice. Full morale, he's not going to have a problem. He'll always pass that. If it's yellow morale, he has to roll a 6 or less. If he's that's a partially suppressed. The red is fully suppressed. He's going to have to roll at 1. This because zeros are 10 or 10s. It actually shows 10. This is the flip side. You see the red stripe through it. And he has only 1 casualty value now. The way this combat system works is I have a Russian unit. You can see firepower significantly less, and his proficient firepower, because they weren't as well trained troops as the Panzer Grenadiers, much less there. The way the system works is if this German unit is going to fire on this Russian unit, his firepower, let's say he's standing still, he's going to roll against a 6. And if he rolls less than a 6 or less, he hits. That will at least suppress him. If the number is, now you go over to his casualty value. If the difference in your die roll and that first casualty value, if it's less than, it's just suppressed. So let's say 6, difference is 3. Let's say he just rolled a 4, so the difference between 6 and 4 is 2. 2 is not greater than 3, so he just gets a yellow suppression marker. It just lets you know you're going to be rolling off the yellow for the rest of this turn. If he gets hit again while he's yellow suppressed, but not enough to meet the casualty values, it's red suppression. But let's say instead of rolling against that 6, he rolled a 2. The difference is 4. That's greater than the 3, less than the 7s. That's going to flip him automatically, and when you flip, that's red suppression. Now, if you got a unit that's red suppressed already, let's say he's full strength and red suppressed, you just keep shooting and shooting and shooting and hitting. You're not going to do any damage. The idea is his head's in the dirt. You're not going to be hitting him. You're just keeping his face down in the dirt. So to hit him, you actually have to beat the casualty value. If it was greater than, if the difference is greater than 7, then it would just kill him instantly. And you're like, wait a minute, I can't roll greater than 7 when my firepower is 6. That's where it comes in. There's only one sheeted table on this thing, and it's terrain modifiers. If this guy is running across the open, your firepower is going to get modifiers that are going to greatly increase it. If he moves adjacent to it, it's also going to greatly increase it. There's also modifiers for if you're in a wood building, stone building, things like that, so it's going to decrease your firepower. But if this guy's moving across the open, gets adjacent to you, and you fire then, your modifier is going to be well over 10. I don't remember it off the top of my head. I think it's, usually I always talk about how it's easy to memorize these, but I'm still kind of stuck on the old system from Screaming Eagles. But I believe that's going to put you around a 12 for your base die roll. So it's not too hard to beat a 7. So you'd instantly kill the unit. So, but if anything in between those numbers, you flip him, and then you see he only has 1 casualty value. So the next time if you shoot at him, anything, if your difference between your roll and your die roll and your firepower is greater than 3, it's going to kill the unit. That's how you do your basic distance shooting. In this game, you have each side has a certain amount of command points to start with, or a command range. And it might say 1 to 3, and that means you have to move at least 1 unit, no more than 3 units, and then the other side goes. It gives you some flexibility. Decide that the better command is going to have more range in it, more possibilities. If you have worse, it might say you have to move 2 to 3. So I move my few units, you move your few units. I move mine, you move yours, go back and forth until everybody's out. When you do something with the unit, you put a use marker on them, just so you know you can't use them for the rest of the turn. Now, what's really nice about this game is that one of the things I didn't like in some of the other systems is he's got a use marker. I'm going to bum rush this guy now because he can't fire till next turn. That is not true. If you move adjacent to any unit, he can instantly fire on you. It's called final op fire. And it's pretty deadly. I mean, he has a proficiency loss because it's more or less you're trying to shoot at people all around you and running, but it's still pretty deadly. Also in this system, after we go back and forth and all of our units have use markers or op fire, you can put a guy in op fire, which will help your die roll when you're trying to shoot against somebody. After that, you have a rout phase. Anybody that the enemy has line of sight of that's out in the open, no protective cover, or if you're adjacent to them, are going to roll against the morale. And if they fail, they've got to get to protective cover. And they cannot move adjacent to the enemy. If they do, they're eliminated. So one of the things you do in this game is if you can get this guy fully suppressed, and then you get on top of him for melee combat. At the rout phase, he's only rolling against a 1, so if he rolls anything greater, he fails. I said you cannot move adjacent. He's dead instantly. If he does survive, or let's say he's at yellow or whatever, you move in. At that point, after the rout phase, you do the melee phase. Each squad rolls 2 dice, compares to their firepower. Each one's a hit. So you might get lucky, get 2 hits. You might strike out and get none, but they will stay locked into that until somebody's dead. You can try to move out, but it's pretty deadly if you do. And that's the basic combat system in this game for infantry. Basically, it's the whole operations where you go and I go back and forth until all our units are used, then rout, and then melee, and then at the end you have what's called the recovery phase. Everybody you remove all the use markers, all the out fire markers, and everybody's going to decrease 1 level of suppression. So all the reds are going to yellows. Anybody who's yellow just loses it completely because they will recover over time. So this also represents that you want your squad to move, but he's somewhat suppressed and he's just not going to follow your orders. The way the armor system works is you have values up here. These 2 numbers at the top, most of the times they'll be split. I might say 11 and 9. The first number is the firepower against a vehicle. The next one is the firepower against a squad. The 8 and the 7 is the armor from the front, because in these you have this arrow at the top and you don't put them in your traditional hex facing like you do in most. And the infantry doesn't have the arrows. They just lay down and they're supposed to represent anywhere. But you put them like this, and when you move them like that. Oops, I better not move off the camera. Okay, 8 and 7. This is his forward facing armor and then his rear facing armor. The 10 is his speed. And all the infantry units have built in there, all 5 movement, unless they're weapons, then they only have 4 movement. This is what's called his proficiency, because some units are going to be much more proficient. The German armor are way more efficient than the Russian armor. Part of it's because they had the radios. And then you got an identifier down here. So when you want to do something, you have to roll first against your proficiency. And things are going to affect that, such as range, if you're moving, if you're pivoting, if the enemy has, after you finish moving those guys, you'll put a move marker on them. Looks like that. And if the enemy has a move marker on them, that's going to factor into it. So there's very much a proficiency built into this. If you pass it, then you roll against your firepower versus his armor. And if you score less than, it's an automatic kill. There's no suppression levels in this. That's how the armor system works.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.